last night, 10 o'clock on Channel 4. It was the big expose. It was Hope Not Hate's moment. This is when they had an hour and a half documentary dedicated to their groundbreaking work against the Nazis that lurk in every corner of white working class Britain and Europe. And of course, the further east you get, the more Nazified the continent becomes. That's kind of the narrative and the vibe that was coming from this. I don't know whether it was a comedy or a documentary. There were some bits in it that I must admit I found farcical. There were other bits in it that I found very, very sinister, not from the so-called far right. And I don't think they found any far right people in the entire documentary. They filmed some, but I don't think they had any groundbreaking undercover footage that we didn't know already. Putting all that aside, the purpose of the film was to show how edgy and how covert and how amazing Hope Not Hate are. Well, from what I saw, the extent of their undercover work was one journalist who looked like he needed a bit more testosterone. I'm not going to lie. One very sort of a few limp-wristed journalists and a few button cams. And, well, walking around interviewing people with button cams is hardly groundbreaking. It's been done for donkey's years. The technology gets better, the cameras get better, the footage gets better, but it's nothing that we haven't seen from the Cook Report in the 1980s. But the problem that they had was they were chasing ghosts. And look, the other day, I'm going to be brutally honest, I'm no big fan of Paul Golding at all, to say the least. But the expose they tried to do on Paul Golding, they had one of his guys saying some off-colour stuff, which not very nice. But there wasn't a big, deep conspiracy there to take over the country. And then I think Golding said in 10 years' time, things are going to be a lot worse and that's going to be an opportunity for his party. Well, in 10 years' time, things are going to be a lot worse. And if we don't have political parties in the centre-right that are going to do something, then the extremes will capitalise on that. And so I think what he said there was true and accurate. And I'm sure he'd said it on a platform, let alone saying it to a hidden camera. So nothing groundbreaking on Britain First. And then they decided they were going to, as Hope Not Hate do, because what you've got to understand about Hope Not Hate is Nick Lowles has an obsession, an unhealthy obsession, I might add, with Tommy Robinson. And he has done his best. I mean, really, I actually wonder if Tommy could get a non-molestation order against Nick Lowles, because the man is absolutely obsessed. Couldn't wait for Tommy to get home, hoping that he was going to get arrested, that he was going to get dragged away by the police at the airport. You know, the glee on Nick Lowles' face when he handed in his dodgy dossier to the, I think it was the CPS or whoever. I'm not very up on legal things, I'm not going to pretend to be. But he handed it into the authorities, this dossier that he built up, proving he claimed that there'd been a breach of a court order on a film. Now, this is a very interesting point because, again, I've not seen the court order, so I don't know the exact ins and outs of it. And if anyone has seen it and they can keep me right on this, please do. But the very interesting thing in all this was that Hope Not Hate, or whoever made the film for Channel 4, certainly Channel 4 broadcast a clip from the film Silenced. Now, the film Silenced is banned or whatever. It's not allowed to be played. There's a court order saying that the Silenced film cannot be played, I think, in the UK. I think it just applies to the UK. I'm not sure about that, but that's what it seems to be. So if that's what it is, and I think it was any part of the film Silence can't be played in the UK. If that's the case, Channel 4, if Hope Not Hate made the film, or the production company that made the film, and I'm guessing Hope Not Hate were the ones that pressed play on the machine when it played a little screen behind, that would suggest that Hope Not Hate, Channel 4, Nick Lowles have actually breached that court order. So the question is, will they be dragged before the same judge that Tommy's going to be dragged before? And will they get, I suppose if they've only broken it once, will they get 2 years in prison? Is Nick Lowles been investigated for his tweet, which was false and which certainly could have caused an inflammatory reaction from the British Muslim community? Is Nick Lowles going to be questioned about his tweet? Because I've been told that it's been reported to the police. And then we had the farcical situation where Lowles is sitting on a park bench and he's looking very worried, and Joe, whatever his name is, I don't know, this Joe geezer, he's in his flat and he's looking all panicky as well, and he's saying, I've been targeted in my own home. Let me tell you something about Hope Not Hate. Hope Not Hate published a book. They didn't give me a right to reply in the book. They published my name in the book, and they said that I was a special forces soldier, or I'd worked in a special unit in Northern Ireland. They didn't research it. They didn't ask me. They didn't come to me. They didn't give me a right to reply. They published that in a book, and then the Guardian newspaper and other newspapers published it in their print and online editions. Now, everybody knows my background. I was a soldier in Northern Ireland. I just did a normal soldiering job. I did a 2-year tour in the 80s when I was a young lad. I spent 7 years in the British Army, left and settled in Northern Ireland. And I'm very cautious about my personal security, even though it's years down the line. But every guy that's English and is an ex-soldier, you know that you could be targeted, right? Now, for them to actually say that I was in a special unit or was in some sort of special forces unit, which is a complete lie, it was a fabrication, it was untrue, for them to say that put my life in direct and imminent danger. Because, let's get it right, there are still Republican terrorists in this country. And if they genuinely believed that I was in some sort of special unit, they would target me without a shadow of a doubt. They did that. They never apologised. They agreed to redact it from the online book. I don't think they ever redacted it from the print books. They took it out of the online book. They never printed an apology. They never apologised to me. At least the Guardian, to be fair to them, actually did retract and print an apology. But then they got wrong what I did in Northern Ireland when I was serving as well. So I mean, it was just, the whole thing was completely farcical. So Lowles, who was crying about being targeted by whoever, by some little random weirdo who'd ordered a gun off the internet and had Lowles' address, and I don't think ever said anywhere he was going to do anything to Nick Lowles. He didn't say, there was no, I don't think there was any evidence that he was going to go and shoot anybody. Pretty dumb thing to do, buying a gun off the internet, and where he got Nick Lowles' address from, who knows, but I'm sure, like anybody, nobody's impossible to find. If somebody wanted to find me, they could find me very easily, So the reality is that what they were complaining about, they had done themselves. When Lowles published that book, he knew I lived in Northern Ireland. And I don't believe for a minute that he's so naive that he didn't realise that that was putting me in danger from dissident Republicans. Now, obviously, again, I got the retraction from the Guardian newspaper, but Lowles never published anything saying that he was wrong and that his research was wrong. So, when you put all that together and you look at the weakness of the documentary that was made, and then you look at the influence that Lowles has, and I would also like to know, are there connections between people who work for Hope Not Hate and Republicans in Northern Ireland? It's a big question, but it's a question I want to know the answer to. I also want to know what connection anti-fascist action in the north, in the Yorkshire area and in the northwest in the late 1980s and the early 1990s had with a group called Red Action, and how closely associated was Nick Lowles with those groups. And there's a very specific reason why I'm asking that question. And those questions, if you're an investigative journalist and you want to look at Hope Not Hate and you want to look at Nick Lowles, I suggest you look into that connection. Anti-fascist action, Red Action. I'm not going to give you any more than that. Join the dots. But let's just say we'll talk about Harrods, we'll talk about Warrington. And I'm not going to say any more.